Hi there. Today in this little video I'm going to show you how the elevation tool works. You can follow this in the training manual from page 27, module 4. I'm not going to exactly follow what they do in the book. I'll maybe show you some different ways of looking at them, but basically the approach will be something similar. So when you look at this plan I've got here already, you'll see that it actually has some elevation markers on it. If you're looking for the elevation marker, it's actually under document, and you'll see that it appears down here. It's the one with the little single arrow as opposed to the section one, which has two. So what we can do first is if we just go into the elevation tool, if I click here and then look up to the top, you'll see we have got something similar along this bar, and we've got something that can open up the settings. If I click once here or double click here, we should get a dialog box. And this dialog box is something similar to what you're looking at on page 27, although they have just kind of given us a little snapshot. They also explain what these things are: the ID, the name, and marker reference, first place drawing. I have to admit I'm not quite sure what this means, but I'm just going to take their advice and say just leave it the way it is. And at the moment Archicad wants me to put in an elevation with ID E05 because we already have 4 elevations on this project, which you can see around in the background. If you read through these things, it kind of explains what the content means. There's things in here about whether we can see forever or do we limit it to seeing perhaps a couple of meters just ahead. Vertical range, normally infinite, but if you were working on a skyscraper and you just wanted to see the elevation between certain floors, you could maybe put some limits in here between project 0 and various or a different ground floor or any story, in fact. But for today and for us, just infinite's good enough. There's a lot of very detailed ones in here. I would just leave them the way they are at the moment. Marker head at the middle, I would leave it there too, so it does not get confused with the sections. Now you can look through, there's ones in here, story levels, and this is one that people ask about a lot because they look at their elevations and they see these lines going through the middle. So you can actually turn them off here, or else just show them at the sides of your elevation by unchecking this one. So you can explore those if you want, but there's lots of tools here that I found I have never had to use in terms of producing the drawings we need. So let's click OK, and we'll just work with the ones we have. Now if I was to click this section, shift click and go here, it'll open up all the attributes and settings associated with that, and you can see the marker here, marker size, and we can customize that marker. I think we can override the content of it, marker text, and I think there's a custom one in here which you may be, but now at this stage I wouldn't do that. So that's just showing you how we can control what the elevation is looking at. In terms of over in this drawing, you'll see in the view map we've got our elevations. Because they've been created, they're in here as well. If you did not have an elevation created, you would just go to the elevation tool and then just draw a line. So I'll do one of those. I'll just click here, and you can see at the moment we've got 4 elevations. I'm going to do a new one. It says enter first node of elevation line. I'm just going to draw a line, so I'm going to repeat the one I've got. It's always a good idea to hold the shift button down because it keeps the line from wavering. So this way I'm constraining it or restricting it to the horizontal. I'm past my building. I'm going to click, and the little eye says, where do you want to look? Now if I looked up this way I wouldn't see anything, and if I look down this way I'll see the building. So I just go like that, and we have not assigned any ID to this building. And you can see actually that this one, I'll just check its settings because it's actually limited. See, you may see in the background the way there's just a green line here, and that means we've told this elevation that it's kind of short-sighted, so it actually wouldn't even see our building. So if I say limited, change it from limited to infinite, go OK. Now this elevation can see forever, and you'll see over here we've got EO5. Now we can right-click on this elevation and say open with current view settings, or we can just double-click here. Now what we're seeing is the building, and that's the building from the view that we just created. If you want to see any of the other ones which are in the project map, we'll just go north elevation, which is the same as my EO5. East elevation, should be one around the side. South elevation. Now you might say, well, there's no ground here, but it's probably because we're on a layer combination of plan floor. I'll just try it at elevations and see, and you can see that there's some ground appears. And you may remember from what I told you in one of the other videos that that is the reason that we really get our views from the project map and start generating in this view map drawings that we've started to create here. Now this one, I'm just going to take it out because we've already got one very similar. And over here, if I click on the north elevation, you can see that this one has got the correct layer combination assigned to it, and that layer allows me to see the ground that the building is on. So if I just look in the view map again, and maybe I'll try the south elevation, which is this one. I'll try the east, and you can see the fact that these elevations have shadows. And if you want to change these elevations, you can actually change them, and for presentation drawings you should leave them with colors and stuff, but you can actually right click on one of these and go to elevation settings, and it'll bring up this dialog box that we looked at before. And there's things in here called model display. Uncut elements, fill it with nothing. And I think there's one down below. We go to sun and shadows. And you can see sun shadow. So for instance, if you're doing a documentation elevation, you probably wouldn't have any shadows. In fact, you definitely wouldn't. So I'm going to uncheck this box, and let's see what difference it makes to that view. And now you can see it's kind of almost like just a simple line drawing with no real patterns or shading for the cladding, and no actual shadows. These are the story levels that I referred to a little while ago. Don't worry about these levels at the moment, but let's see how you get rid of those. I'll just say elevation settings, and if we go down to story levels, and I don't want to get rid of them completely, I just want to keep them, say, to the left hand side. So I'll check this box, and I'll also check this box, and then hopefully you'll see what happens in the actual drawing. And now these have disappeared over to this side. So I think that is enough for this video. Sections work in a similar way, and I'll maybe do a little, hopefully shorter one for sections, but have a go at this and practice, and you'll see they're not that difficult. So best of luck, and see you in class.